Shalom, everyone. Welcome back. This week's Torah portion, a portion of Bo, talks about the last of the 10 plagues, the plague of the firstborn, as the angel of death came around and slew all the firstborn of Egypt, while the Jewish firstborn lived. And it's an interesting story, of course. We all are familiar with it. We talk about it every Passover, how the Jewish people were commanded to put blood on the lintels, the sides of their homes, of the doorposts, and the angel of death passed through it. My dear friend Louis Klass, who just passed away recently, was a jokester. He loved telling jokes, and his favorite joke of all time concerned the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death. He said that and this is in tribute to Louis, he said that the angel of death would go around one place where there were a whole bunch of older people, and he was scaring the daylights out of them, frightening them as he went around. And meanwhile, there was one old guy who was sitting there and who was not fazed at all. And the angel of death came over to him and said to him, "Aren't you afraid of me? Don't I terrify you?" And he answered, "Why should I be scared of you? I've been married to your sister for 35 years. That's in memory, in tribute to Louis Klass. We love you, Louis, wherever you are, up there, making fun and making jokes. Upstairs, we know that for sure. Anyhow, so the angel of death went around to all the Jewish homes and spared all the Jews and killed all the Egyptians. I'm reading a book now, an interesting book called The Queen of Cleveland, the remarkable story of Rebbetzin Kazin of Cleveland, who passed away recently, and her young childhood, growing up in Soviet Russia, and how difficult, how horrible it was. Her father was taken away. He was a Moel, practicing Moel, and a very active supporter and follower of the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, whose Yortzeit we're observing this coming week. And he was taken away, and his wife and children were left bereaved and without any income or anything. In fact, they lived for some 8 or 9 years in the women's section, in the balcony of one of the old shuls where they lived. And it was a horrible existence, how difficult it was, how hard it was. And the fact is that they decided not to send their children to school. They didn't want their children to go to the Soviet school because they didn't want them to be indoctrinated with the communist theology. In fact, this book was banned in communist China, I understand. They did not allow it to be printed there because it spoke very, very negatively about communism. In any case, they lived in absolute dire poverty upstairs in the women's section of the shul. Hardly had any food to eat. Very often the children went to sleep hungry every night. We can't imagine what life must have been like for them, until eventually Rebbetzin Kazin got married and they escaped and they came to the United States and settled in Cleveland, where they became really the stalwarts of the Jewish community there. In any case, she tells a story that during this harsh time, they were visited by truly a Malach HaMavis, an angel of death. But this angel of death was in the form of a Jewish superintendent of schools for their district, who was an ardent communist. She came to visit them. She heard about them, that she was not sending her children to school. And she told Mrs. Shagalov, the mother, that, if you send your children to school, you'll get an apartment, a decent place to live, and you'll get a food allowance, and you'll get medical treatment and everything. It pays to do that. In fact, many of the rabbis urged her to send her children to school, and she would teach them about Judaism in the evening. But she decided not to do that because she was afraid that if the children go to school in Russia, then they had school 6 days a week, including Shabbos, and the kids would have to go to school on Shabbos, and they would be indoctrinated with the communist theology. So in the midst of this conversation with this lady, the lady said to her, why? She looked on her table, and there were 2 candlesticks from Shabbos that had been burning from before Shabbos, that they were there from Shabbos, and this is already, I think, Sunday or Monday. And she looked at them and said, why do you stay with all of the old, ancient superstitions of your religion. This lady was Jewish. And what a waste it is. And you need to train your children in the new modern ways of communism, of socialism. Look what you're teaching them. I mean, they're starving and they're hungry. How can you raise children like this? You know that and she told her, your children will end up being communists like the rest of us. Communism is the wave of the future, and your Jewish lifestyle will die out and it'll never be around. And the girls were frightened to hear this. They were terrified that this lady could have snitched on them. She could have told the authorities. They all could have been arrested, and the mother could have been sent to Siberia. And they were very, very afraid. The lady left in a huff, and the girls many of them were younger. They came out of hiding so that the woman would not know exactly how many children she's got and at what age. And the mother said to the girls, this woman is telling us that Judaism is going to die out. Well, the fact is that she will die out, and her communist philosophy will die out, and Judaism will continue in the future. And indeed, that is exactly what happens. Not just then, not just in communism. We say, where is Soviet Union today? It's nowhere. Where is Jewish practice today? Chabad houses all over the world are practicing and encouraging Judaism and Shabbos and holidays and kashrus and Torah study, better practiced and more active than any other time in history. Judaism has survived and flourished over the years, while the enemies of our people have indeed died out with the Malach HaMavis. Judaism has been the blood on our lintels. It has protected us from every misfortune and every horrible incident and every anti-Semitism in history, and it will continue to do so. Let's understand who they are, and let's understand who we are and what we practice. And in so doing, we will be the victors, as we always have been. I want to wish you all a good Shabbos. Candle lighting in San Diego's at 4:59. And we should expect a very good week. There will be a Farbrengen this coming week in honor of Yud Shvat, the previous Rebbe's Yortzeit. Stay tuned with your local Chabad centers for the location and times for those Farbrengens. And I want to wish you all a good week. Shalom.